A few months ago, we discovered a graffiti site that only 5% of viewers here on the channel have access to. And we put down some cold, hard cash to get a graffiti shipment sent over of some spray paint and some mobs. And today we're going to be testing out one of those mobs that, according to the numbers, almost nobody uses. And that mob that we are doing a full surface tagging test and a full buff test with is the Montana Street Dabber, filled specifically with their street ink. Our tagging test is going to tell us, is this worth picking up for you graffiti writers out there? And our buff test is going to show us, does this street ink stand up to the competition in the graffiti market? And I'm going to be telling you why this ink that nobody seems to use is probably, in my opinion, a massively undervalued ink, and why you might want to be using it, or at least picking it up to try for yourself. Now, while we do our tagging test, I'm going to be giving you all the details about this Montana Street Ink that you're going to want to know. But first, I want to tell you exactly how we got our hands on this. We got the Montana Street Ink here from one of the best hidden gems of graffiti sites I've seen in ages. It's a Canadian-based site called graffitiboulevard.com, and they're the official supplier of MTN products in Canada. Now, they only ship within Canada, hence why just a few of you have access to the site, but if you do, you really should order from them. These guys have very uncharacteristically reasonable prices on their mobs and their spray paint, and they're one of the only graffiti sites that I see today that legitimately has real sales. Not that 5% off crap, 25% off some of their mobs if you're looking at their site at time of recording right now. You just don't see that anymore. But let's get some tags up on our different tagging surfaces, and then we'll do another little installment of a mini episode of Will It Buff? Let's go see. Now, while we get some tags done up here on a smooth finished surface and a rougher unfinished surface, I'm going to be telling you about the things that I can feel using this mob that you guys might not be able to see yourself on camera. And then what we're going to do, we're going to let those tags sit for a good 24 hours before we do our buff test, and we're going to do a coverage test right away and give the tags being covered, again, a good 24 hours to try and seep through and see the results. So the Montana Street Ink comes in just two colors, red and black. They're blue haters, I guess. I don't know what to tell you. But again, this ink, they know what it's for. They're not trying to have every color the way Molotov or Iron Lac would be. They know their market. This is a bombing style ink. One thing I do want to mention, you're getting a lot of these kind of breakages in the lines here. And although you might be seeing this tag first, I fooled around a little bit with the tags here, and I can confirm at first I thought maybe because we buffed the surface recently, but basically a lot of the smooth surfaces we're trying this out on, including the glass tags you'll see later, they're just having those breakages in these lines. The drips, you can tell, very, very weird. And that's usually a formulation thing, I'll be perfectly honest. For those of you who are gonna say, oh, it's too smooth for the ink, a lot of other inks we've tested out on this surface, been using this testing surface for years, have performed quite well and don't have this issue. So it is something that is a kind of unique problem that this is happening. And speaking of colors, the red itself, a very vibrant kind of middle of the road red, and because of that you're gonna see the translucency not too bad. It is an ink after all, so you're not gonna get perfect opaqueness. Inks aren't really meant for that, but it is light enough that you probably will see some trouble with UV resistance fairly quickly, if I had to guess. For those of you who are wondering how we choose the names to tag up in our tagging tests like this, we tag up subscribers' names and names of those those of you who are in our Patreon crew, one of the perks of being in the Patreon crew or the channel memberships, if they've launched yet, is you permanently have your name on the hit off list for videos just like this one. You get monthly extra exclusive content. Sometimes that includes buff tests, other times that's us analyzing some graffiti pieces of the very best graffiti artists in the world to help you and myself improve our graffiti pieces. So you can check that out in the description. It's $3 a month to join, and it really does support the channel here. Or if the memberships have launched, check that join button out. As far as the drippability goes for this Montana Street ink, drippability is like viscosity, but for cool kids, in case you didn't know. It's a very drippy formula, but the drips just are not that nice solid drips that you get. Even on the rougher painted over wood surface, we're testing them out, the drips are a little bit nicer there, but you can just tell it's something with the formulation. It does smell like a very strong alcohol-based ink, but there's something different about it. Again, back to the transparency, there's not really like a lot of streaking or anything like that, so from that perspective, this is done really, really well. You get that nice true color, in this case a very true red that you're looking for there, so that's nice to see. As far as the Montana Street Dabbers go, I don't want to talk too much about the mops because we actually did a full video tagging with both sizes of the Montana Street Dabbers. I was not ready for the 18mm Street Dabber, I will say that, so you can check that video in the corner, or it's in the description too. I would recommend, not too many people saw that one. And that goes for the nib quality as well. We're obviously not tagging on anything particularly rough, but this painted wood surface is rough enough, and these are holding up just fine. I wish you could hear the sound of the tagging on there. I'll be perfectly freaking honest, this is the second time I've had to record this whole video because my audio wasn't working the first time. So I don't have audio on those tags on the wood surface, but it sounded like we were grinding the nib up, and the nib is staying together just fine there. This is after a good 20 tags. Now, just in case some of you are wondering if these lines hold up a little better on that wood, you can see they do, but I do want to emphasize the wood tags that you're seeing there, that's a very rough painted over wood at this point. So there's actually about 4 or 5 layers of this buff paint on there. So there's a lot of resistance, a lot of surface area to hold onto for those lines. So when there's that much area, it does firm up those lines and it does give you some smoother, nicer edges. Even on the glass that we tested this out on, you can see it's having the same problem. That's what I'm waffling about there in silence because, again, my audio wasn't working. So it really is like all the smooth surfaces the street ink formula is having a bit of trouble with. The good news for all of you, though, is for your graffiti tagging needs, there's not too many surfaces out there in the wild that are that smooth, just because the difference between, say, smooth sheet metal you might find out on the street somewhere and this is that sheet metal always has some dirt and grime on it and that sort of thing, whereas these surfaces are pristine and clean. So most of the time, I think you're just fine with some solid lines there. The drips might be a different story. For a few of the tags near the bottom of that wood segment there, you might notice I tried to get a few more drips involved in there, and you do have the ability to do that with these mops, which is nice, but I just don't think this is the formula for that. Who knows, some people might like those jagged drips. Again, this is very much personal preference, as is almost everything in Graff. One of the main rules about Graff, after all, is there's no rules. So don't forget that. So it's been a day. What we did was cover this just with a pretty, I'll be honest, a pretty skimpy layer of buff paint, and you can see the results. I'll bring you through it on screen. You can see through a little bit, but I'll be honest, not super impressive. Now what I will do for you guys is while I'm editing this video over the next week or two, I'll take a picture of this, because a lot of times what happens is the ink will continue to seep through for days and days afterward and become a little more clear. So maybe this will end up being a little more visible. We'll have to see, but we are getting some initial visibility there as well. But for right now, what we're going to do is I did a tag on our kind of finished wood surface, as well as, of course, we tagged up our smooth polyplastic there as well. We're going to try and do a buff test with basically just a pretty standard all-purpose buffing liquid that I pretty much use to buff these surfaces out usually. So we'll see if these have anything to say about that. But first, let's do the one on wood. So we're doing this tag on this smooth finished wood surface, but what I want you to see is there are ghosts of tags above and below that schism tag. And right here, all we're doing is applying the buffing liquid. We're not putting any elbow grease into this at all, and you're going to see the results very soon, but there's not much ghosting at all. There's none. I don't know why I'm saying not much. There's none. And you're even seeing the ghosts of tags under that schism tag after this red ink has been removed. So that kind of says it all. It had 8 days to set in, nothing stayed. Alright, so we're pretty much going to try and annihilate this coffin tag here. But what we usually try and do here, and this is what you do if you're trying to buff something, you just want to get a good spread of the liquid on there. You need to let it sit a lot of the time to kind of start taking effect and start messing with the ink and the chemicals. Some things take more effort than others. I'll be honest, you guys know how long we've used this particular surface for our reviews. Things don't stay on this mostly because it's finished, like there's nothing for inks to seep into. So this is a very harsh, very unfair buff test that we're trying here, just to be clear. But I was really disappointed. I thought with the kind of finished wood, it would have more an effect. You saw a lot of ghosts of tags on that surface. Nothing from this though. So let's try and clean this up. Not really seeing any ghosting, but we're gonna put another layer of this down, clean up the red smudges here, because that's when we'll really be able to see if there's any ghost. But as of right now, I don't have high hopes, obviously. Yeah, that's pretty much that. So pretty much nothing left there. This is understandable, but I would love to know if you guys expected wood to just not hold on to that at all. Obviously it's a finished wood, but the finish on finished wood is not the same as a finish on polyplastic. Even with the buff testing results here, I still think that this is a undervalued, underused ink by graffiti writers, and I'll tell you why. Nowadays, it's unheard of pretty much to find reasonably priced literally anything, and that very much includes graffiti supplies. And yet somehow the Montana Street ink is still pretty reasonably priced, relative at least to other graffiti inks on the market, especially other brand name inks. And although the buff test was a little bit disappointing, I do think our tag test shows that the quality is there. I do think this is something you might want to pick up and try out for yourself. Part of the fun of graffiti, as I always say, is trying out different supplies, seeing what feels comfortable to you, and seeing what feels fun. But I honestly think the main reason you might want to pick these up is because of the mop itself and just disregarding the ink. I talked a lot about the mops in our actual video testing out the different size mops of the Montana Street Dabbers. You can check that video on screen right now. I go into a lot of detail while we do our tagging test of both Montana Street Dabber sizes over there. Specifically, their 18mm mop was something I was not prepared for, so check it out. As always, thank you to the Patreon crew. I'll see you in that video soon. Peace.